bolts down this ravine, takes off chasing the doe again. And I'm just like, holy crap. And so it all happened so fast, like adrenaline. I didn't even have time for adrenaline to even hit until I saw the arrow pass through. And then I'm just like, dude, that was him. And so I get my binoculars up and I look and I can see him laying there. And I was just like, oh my God. So I'll walk up and, dude, to put my hands on that thing for the first time. So I do what everybody says, and I wait an hour, and I was like, all right, well, I'll get down and see if I see any blood on the trail that he walked in. So I wait an hour, get down and go look, and there's blood just poured out everywhere.
Tejas.
Still two.
Tejas Hunt Club Podcast is the podcast for you and you and you and you. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Tejas Hunt Club Podcast. This week, we're going to be sitting down with Chad Jones and talking whitetail. We're going to be talking hunting on the King Ranch and how he grew up and how he was introduced to the outdoors by his dad. This is a great episode. We get into some big whitetail stories. Thanks again for tuning into the podcast, whether you watch it or you just listen to it. We really appreciate it. It's been real fun, doing these and getting to sit down and talk with different people about hunting and fishing. And it's awesome. And really glad y'all are enjoying it. As always, please follow us on all social channels. Facebook, Instagram, join our Tejas Hunt Club group. All we do in the group is we talk about hunting and fishing, sharing ideas and different things that we've done. So enough of me blabbing on. We are going to jump in the podcast with Chad Jones, and thanks for listening, guys.
Cool. Well, guys, we're back again with another episode of the Tejas Hunt Club podcast. This afternoon, I'm sitting down with Mr. Chad Allen Jones. We met on Instagram. He's a big buck killer for sure. He hunts whitetails pretty heavy, and he also likes to hunt turkeys. So we definitely got along right off from the start. So glad to have him on the podcast today. Thank y'all for listening. And first up, I'm just going to let Chad do a little introduction about himself, how he grew up, where he grew up, and how he got started hunting.
Well, Brandon, appreciate you having me on, man. Obviously, we clicked right from the start. Anytime you get me started talking about hunting, buddy, you might as well sit down. So, but yeah, so for me, starting out hunting, I mean, when people kind of say it's in their blood and in their heritage, I mean, it's literally in my blood. I started getting drug around by my dad when I was 4. And it was kind of one of those things to where he hunted a lot of public land. And so he would take me and my brother, and obviously we weren't old enough to know anything from anything at that point, but he would take a camouflage tarp and he'd find a tree, take some old pole climbers, climb up there, but he'd wrap me and my brother up in a camo tarp. And we would just sit there and, play with stuff and mess around, while he would hunt. And of course, it was kind of one of those things. I'm sure he wasn't, he didn't have high expectations, taking a couple young kids around that are, freaked out by every noise. I'm like, hey, Dad, what's that? Kind of deal. But I loved it. Instantly fell in love with it, and so as that progressed, I just always went with him and kind of watched him and, what he did, and just kind of picked up the trade, I guess you'd say. And then got my first rifle, I guess, when I was 7, and then ended up shooting my first buck with a rifle when I was 10, and then picked up a bow when I was 13, and then didn't kill my first buck with a bow until I was, I guess, probably 17, 18, somewhere around there. So, I mean, I had a spell in between from when I actually started carrying a weapon, actually hunting versus having success. But, in the meantime, we had a place out in East Texas that we would hunt a lot, and a lot of wild hogs. And so I've shot countless numbers of those. And so that's pretty much what I grew up doing, was hunting pigs. And then if I got lucky and shot a deer, then that was it. But man, that's how it started for me. It was at an early age, tent camping and, going for the whole weekend. And, I loved it. I couldn't wait for it, man. It was awesome.
Yeah. And that's pretty cool too, like to hear your story with that, because, you know, you said your dad, you grew up going on public land with your dad. And as we know in Texas, we don't have much public land. And I guess most people's story would be like going to the lease with their dad or something like that. But just having that extra little side note of being, you know, it would being on public land in Texas, that's pretty cool growing up doing that.
Because over time. So sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because, you know, we did that for a long time and then ended up getting, you know, a lease and then it kind of transitioned from just going and hunt. You know, you're just trying to be successful in public land.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, you know, it takes some skill and a whole lot of luck.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so, but then once we got on a lease, I really enjoyed the preparation of it, you know, of being able to put out feeders and set my own stands and, you know, pick out spots that wasn't a rat race trying to beat somebody to it.
Yeah.
Fluorescent orange, you know, and, you know, so I really fell in love with just the process of it all. And then, you know, game cameras came along, which weren't cellular at the time, you know, but then it was, I couldn't wait to get to the lease to pull the memory card and, you know, see what was on it. And I mean, that to me, that's what it was all about, man. That was my favorite part.
For sure. Because I'll definitely say your dad is a brave man for, you know, going on public land and with two little kids. Like he was risking it all. Like he was risking it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's cool.
Yeah,
like
no
getting
doubt.
into that. So like after kind of high school and stuff, you know, you said you got to the bow. Did you pick up a rifle while you were still shooting bows then, or once you dove in, was it all bow?
Man, you know, it was, so once I started hunting with a bow, it was a lot of time spent and a whole lot of not having any success. So I kind of always drifted a little bit back to my rifle just to be able to get something, you know. And anyway, and so, but then once I got my first bow kill, you know, it was game over at that point. Then I was just addicted to it. Then to me, the hunting with a rifle was like, man, this is easy. Now it's like, if I see one, I'm going to kill one.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, a whole lot of nerves. You got to bottle up and make the right decisions and be so close. And I mean, the challenge went through the roof.
Yeah.
And that's what I gravitated towards, because, you know, it turned into just killing a deer with my bow to then getting selective about the deer that I want to kill with my bow. And, you know, and each year you want to try to better the year before. And you know, and then I just become addicted to it. And so I'll say, I mean, it's not that I just hung up the rifle and didn't ever use it. I mean, I still gun hunt some, but it's kind of just special occasions. If I'm going somewhere like way out West Texas where it's just as far as I can see and not many trees, or, you know, somewhere where it's like I'm needing to be successful on the only weekend I've got an opportunity to get invited to hunt somewhere, something like that, you know, I'll take my bow and rifle to where, you know, I at least have the opportunity. But, you know, my first passion at this point is my bow always.
Yeah, definitely. Like growing up, we always shot rifles. Like I really didn't know anybody that used a bow to hunt with. And I had friends that shot archery and like in 4-H and stuff. So they had bows, but they were target bows. Not that many people hunted with them. It was all rifle. And then like, so I shot deer, shot hogs, all that kind of stuff with rifles. And I mean, I picked up a bow about two years ago now. And ever since, it's like, I really want it. Like I had to sit this year. I was trying to kill a buck on this place I was hunting, and I had to sit this year that I got to watch him at 100, it was about 200 yards away. So, I mean, if I had a rifle, it'd have been game over. But for 45 minutes, I just sat there and watched him and just looked at my bow next to me and just hoped he'd come in. He stayed out.
Yeah, that's the love-hate relationship with bow hunting, right?
Yep.
Is you love the challenge of it, but then I've been in the same boat you've been in, where I'll sit and watch a target buck at 80 yards, and I'm just like, dude, bow hunting sucks, man. You know, but it builds the story, you know, and it just to me, it pushes me to work harder to figure out a way to get closer to the deer, or put in more time or whatever, you know. And so, But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so you dove right in.
I did.
So I mean, you went to TAC. You went to TAC your first year bow
Yeah,
hunting.
first year bow hunt with TAC.
Yeah,
And
nice.
honestly, I picked it up. I think it was January of that year, and then went to TAC in April.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. I mean, hearing about that event was one of the reasons that was like, okay, yeah, I want to do this because I want to shoot.
Yeah,
and I want to.
It's a fun event.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I'm hoping to make it to one this year, but my oldest daughter's in club volleyball, and that's been like something pretty much every weekend.
Yeah.
So hopefully I can catch one late this summer.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I want to try and make one out west, but we'll work it into the plan at some time. But yeah,
right.
It was, like I said, it was difficult kind of hunting this season, but for me, because I'm still trying to shoot my first buck with a bow. Like I've shot one with a rifle and stuff, but just still haven't got one with a bow yet. So I've been kind of itching for it, but we'll get there one.
You just wait, buddy. It'll change everything.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's a gratifying moment because, like I say, I went years before hunting, but the place I was hunting to didn't have a very high population of deer.
Yeah,
so there was a lot of hours spent not even seeing a deer to shoot, much less trying to shoot a buck, that close range. And so, but yeah, no, you'll get it done, man. It'll be an awesome moment.
No, it will be for sure. I'm excited for it, and I know it's just going to make it even worse. I'm going to want to do it all the time, even though I already do.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, man. So like, what was your first buck that you shot with your bow? Like, kind of, what was that story? Was it one that you've been watching for a while, or was it just the right place at the right time? Like, how did that work out?
Well, so my very first buck was kind of the worst thing that can happen as a bow hunter or any hunter for that matter. But it was an 8-point had come in, and I had been sitting in a newsstand that I wasn't, I hadn't sat in a lot. I was a new bow hunter. I didn't range the trees or nothing. Now I ranged, there was a feeder that I had, and I knew the distance to the feeder, but I didn't think about, oh, well, what if he doesn't come to the feeder and he skirts the outside, which is exactly what this buck did. And all I could do, I could tell that he wasn't going to come to the feeder. He was kind of skirting around. I think he was just kind of checking for does. Yeah. And so I kind of got stuck having to make a decision. Like, of course, at this point, I'm shaking like a leaf, man. Like, this is my first buck, and he was a pretty nice deer. And anyway, so I'm just like, man, I'm kind of guessing about how far he is. I thought that I knew. And, of course, being, 20 foot up in the stand, those angles change, and depth perception is just, it takes a while to get used to being able to judge that. And I just misjudged it and shot him high. And I watched him, kind of jump and take a few steps and then walked off with my arrow like sticking out of him. And I could tell it wasn't much penetration. And so he walks off, goes down this little ravine, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So I do what everybody says, and I wait an hour, and I was like, all right, well, I'll get down and see if I see any blood on the trail that he walked in. So I wait an hour, get down and go look, and there's blood just poured out everywhere. And I could see where he went down. And I'm just like, okay, he had to have laid down and died. Well, so I followed to the bottom of the ravine just to make sure it was staying real thick. And I was going to back out and go back to camp where my dad and everybody was. And so anyway, right when I cross over the ravine, I see the buck laying underneath the cedar tree. And I was just like, holy crap. And I could tell he was still alive. And so I go to back out when he sees me, stands up, and just bolts. And so at this point, I was like, oh no, and so I just kind of easily walk over there to the cedar where he was bedded under the tree just to look. And there was a huge pool of blood, and my arrow was laying there. So he reached back and like pulled it out. After that, not another drop. And so went back to camp, got my dad, my brother. We searched for hours and hours and hours. And he's like, you pushed him, and who knows how far he'll run. He may not ever die. And so we didn't know, never found him. And, or not that year. We found him the next year, found his skull. But anyway, so that was my actual first buck that I never got, until I found the deadhead a year later. But my first one was kind of a similar story, but this time I went in, I ranged all the trees, I knew all the yardages, just something that comes with experience. Something you don't really think about unless someone teaches you or you learned it. So I ranged all the trees, and another heavy chocolate 8-point comes in, and he gets in at 22 yards, pull back, settle the pin, shoot, make a perfect shot. He runs about 30 yards, falls over, and of course I'm just like, finally, this is amazing, because it'd been, like 3 years and 4 years, really going on 4 years. And anyway, and so it was just a gratifying experience, but you just build on that each year. And and so the next year I was hoping I'd shoot a bigger one, end up shooting a little smaller 6-point, and so but it was just for the love of bow hunting at that point. Everyone always dreams of shooting a big one, but for me, it was just the challenge. It's like, I didn't even pick up my gun. It was like, okay, I could go and shoot one this weekend, but it was like, I had to kill one with my bow at that point. There was no turning back.
Oh yeah. I hear you, man. And kind of like with the first doe I ever shot, I was kind of not the same story, but I wound up shooting her high, and I spined her. So that was like, she didn't run off. She was just right there. But it was like, the initial reaction to that is like, that's not what I wanted to do. Like that.
Traumatizing experience.
Not how I wanted that to go down. But I mean, I got out and I wanted to, finish her off and everything. But like, it was just, like you said, a learning experience. And every time you just kind of build on that, and you just apply different things. Like you said, like next time you went in, you were ranging things. And then next time, you forget to draw your bow back, and you see something or hit something and you don't have room. Well, then time after that, you're going to make sure you draw your bow back and try to make sure it fits
100%.
If you're the blind or the tree.
Always learning. Yeah.
Always
learning.
Always. Those were your first bucks. What was I know you've killed some pretty big ones. A few of them.
Yeah. So that was hunting some leases that, like I said, we were hunting public land. I still hunt public land. So it's just, I enjoy it. It kind of went to bow hunting to then enjoying the challenge of bow hunting on public land. It just kind of escalates into just challenging myself. But, so those bucks I'd shot in Oklahoma on a lease that we had there in Tishomingo, southern Oklahoma. And then I had hunted my very first deer I killed with a rifle. I shot at Crockett National Forest there in East Texas. And so, just over the years, shot deer kind of, here and there and whatever. But then where I live at, which is in North Texas, it's COLLIN County, and they opened up a deer season in 2012. And so, of course, it was, instead of traveling to Oklahoma every other weekend through deer season, then it was like, man, I'll find a lease in COLLIN County, next to home, and be the best of both worlds. And so I ended up finding a lease here, and I didn't kill one. My first couple of years. Not that I couldn't have. I just, I knew there were some bigger deer, and it was just, they didn't get within range. I mean, I saw some, just didn't get within range, because it's a bow-only county too. It's one of only 4 bow-only counties in all of Texas. And anyway, and so just opportunity didn't present itself, and I wasn't going to shoot, a little small buck just to shoot one, And plus, it's a one buck county, and so first couple of years I didn't shoot anything, and then I ended up shooting a little smaller. He was a coal buck. He had like a super long spike on one side and 3 points on the other. And he was an old deer. He was 6-year-old. I mean, he was just bad genetics. And so I ended up shooting him one year, and And then 2018, which was the year that I was actually on a lease, but not seeing anything all through the summer. And then I got a call from a buddy. It was like, hey, man, there's a lease opportunity at this one spot that I was familiar with. I had some friends that had hunted it years previous. And he's like, you interested in getting on? I was like, yeah, count me in, because I knew there was good deer in this area. And so we get on the lease, or I get on the lease November 1st. Okay. And so I'm itching to go down there, put out trail cameras. So I take some cellular cameras. I go out and do some scouting. And while I'm out looking around, I find kind of this oak patch. And so as I'm walking through, just looking down this little ravine and checking out some of the trees, I see a rub on one of the trees that was fresh, because they had just, all the velvet come off, and, just split out a batch, because I missed all of October, for that season. Like I say, I got on November 1st in the middle of the season. And anyway, I found this like 10-inch diameter tree just shredded. And so I was like, well, this would be a good spot to put a camera, not knowing if he'd come back to the rub or not, but I could tell it was really fresh. And there's a lot of acorns that was dropping there. And so I put camera on it. And later that night, I ended up getting a picture of just a mega giant. I mean, like, I'm just like, holy crap, this is unreal. I mean, when you see the pictures, your natural reaction is like, there's no way this is a free range deer.
Yeah.
Like, no one believed me for the longest time. They're like, there's no way that deer grew naturally. I mean, 26-inch spread, had a 10-inch drop tine. I didn't even know how many points at the time. And I'm just like, oh my God, this thing is a freak. So of course now it's like, what's the game plan? Does he live here? Was he traveling through? I didn't know. I mean, there was no history with the place other than some buddies had hunted it. So of course I'm kind of picking their brain, and they're like, well, we had a really big deer that, one of the guys he shot under him. So I'm showing him the pictures. It didn't look like the same deer at all. The one he had was a giant too, but he wasn't wide, didn't have a drop tine, but had more palmation. And so I'm like, I don't think that's the same deer. And anyway, so long story short, so now it's like going into game plan mode of like, putting out more cameras and trying to figure out, where's he coming from? Where's he going to? And because it's November, it's like prime time's coming.
Yeah.
And if we're going to make it happen, that's going to be the month to do it before he gets hit by a car or shot by neighbors or whatever. So anyway, I'm out, kind of trying to, looking at aerial maps, just trying to figure out, food sources and where he comes from. I'm trying to wrap up a whole lot of information in a very
You're doing all your reconnaissance.
And so I'm just spending hours just like studying these maps and these creeks and these tributaries and food sources, and just trying to just, take it all in, and then figure out where to set. I hadn't even set up a stand at this point. I mean, I had just started looking at the place. And so anyway, I knew the spot I had the picture of on the rub. There was kind of a rub line. So I was like, well, I know he's obviously the dominant buck in this area. So I knew for sure I was going to hunt that spot. And anyway, so kind of started working backwards a little bit with the cameras and taking them to an area that I saw was really, really thick compared to all the other pasture land around it. And I was like, man, I'm betting this is where he's bedding, So took some cameras, kind of put it on the other side of it, because I didn't want to go into the bedding area and push him out if he was in there. And then started getting more pictures of him, started getting some, like, I'm talking pictures like every single night, right at dusk, right at dawn, and so I'm going, okay, he's close by because he's on his feet right at the edge. And so I was like, all right, well, at this point, I don't want to go in there anymore and bust anything. So I was like, I'm going to figure out a way to slip in there, get a stand put up. So I go down at noon, get one put in one of the locations that I thought would be good. And then I was trying to go in at 1:00 and put it in another location on the other end for other wind direction. Okay. And anyway, this is like November 5th at this point. And so the other location that I go on the north end, I'm going to hang a stand. So I go in like midday, right? And anyway, so I take and put a cell camera on it because I see this scrape and this rub over there. And so I use off this draw where there were some does that was bedding in there. So I was like, this would be a pretty good spot. I can get in here pretty quiet. So I go in there, do a hang and hunt or do a hang on it. And I was going to come back and hunt that afternoon. And so I go in, take my lock on stand, my climbing sticks. I go get the stand hung up, got the limbs all cut out of the way, perfect shooting lane, 20 yards to the trail. And I was like, all right, well, I'll slip out of here, go back, get my bow, my backpack, everything, and I'll come back, sit for the afternoon. By the truck, the cell camera that I just put out goes off, and it's like 1:30 at this point. And it's this mega giant walking down the trail, walked right past the scrape that I just set the stand up to hunt. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So now I'm stuck because I'm like, well, I can't go back in there.
You'll bump him out.
He's on his feet in the middle of the day, and I don't want to bump him out. So I was like, man, I'll just go hunt the other side. Maybe I get lucky. Well, he no-shows. So anyway, then I was just getting pictures all night long of him. Get some on this side, get some on this side, some in between, just all over, just sporadic. And so I can tell he's starting to cruise now, looking for the ladies. And so anyway, then the first, besides that picture, the first daylight picture, I think was November 11th of like mid-morning. And so I'm like, all right, it's game time now. I've got to, so I called work, put in vacation, took 2 weeks straight vacation. I was like, I'm going to kill this deer. And so, and I knew that was my time. As soon as he was daylighting, looking for does, I was like, I've got to make it happen. And, I knew it was a buck of a lifetime. I knew it was going to take a whole lot of luck, being at the right place, the right time, being within range. I mean, a whole lot of factors, but I was like, dude, it's worth it. So I called my boss. He's like, it's your vacation, do what you want, And so I was like, all right, man. So anyway, so I hunt every single day. Of course, I'm changing locations because of wind directions and all that, but I hunt every single day. Thanksgiving morning, which that year was on November 22nd, another buddy of mine was hunting, and he texts me and says, hey, the drop tine buck is headed south toward you. Well, this was at like 8:50 when he texted me, and I was going to I was only going to hunt until like 9:00 because I was hosting Thanksgiving dinner at my house. And of course, my wife's like, hey, don't be late, all this stuff. I was like, I'm just going to go hunt for a couple of hours. I'll be home. It's fine. Not even thinking anything about it. And anyway, so didn't take my GoPro, nothing. I guess I just went. I'd already hunted for 2 weeks and no opportunity at him, and so it was kind of one of those deals to where it's just like, okay, it's, what are you going to do at this point? And so, anyway, my buddy texted me, says, hey, the drop tine buck is, headed south towards you. And he was hunting about 3/4 of a mile from me. So I'm like, dude, there's no way he's going to follow this doe this far, And so, so anyway, I'm sitting there, I'm kind of looking at my watch, like, what I do is get up and leave. Well, about this time I hear running like through the woods coming from the north. And so I'm sitting there watching across this pasture. And then there's a finger of trees between me and the pasture. And I'm on the other finger of trees where the big rub was that I originally had the picture. And I'm sitting behind a ghost blind because the wind was out of the north and there's a creek to my south. And so instead of sitting in my stand, I sat behind the ghost blind on the ground, which are mirrored panels. I don't know if you've seen them, but so they're mirrored panels that reflect off the ground. So I was sitting there knowing that nothing could come behind me on the creek and smell me. And so anyway, so I'm hearing this running, and I look over and I see this doe just, full speed barreling down, and she turns and starts running straight at me. And I was just like, dude, she's not going to see me sitting here on the ground behind these panels. It just looks like grass and vines. And So I was like, she's going to run over me. I mean, she's like, I'm talking like running straight at me. And so I was just like, so I kind of start swiveling a little bit in my chair to get turned because I'm sitting there thinking, I'm going to have to like stand up and spook her, if she doesn't turn. Well, I can see her angle changes just a little, and she runs and stops 8 yards from me. And she stops and looks back, and of course, there's tongues hanging out. She's panting, and I mean, dude, I'm like so close. I mean, I can see her eyelashes and everything. I'm like, holy crap. And I'm just frozen while I'm looking at her like to the side, and I can hear running and grunting coming from the direction she came from. Well, I can't look because she's so close. So I'm like trying my hardest to like look out of the corner of my eye and see what it is. And so luckily she takes out bolts again and kind of loops around. But when she does, I look over and all I can see is the drop tine hanging down and just this freaking monster running, taking the same path right at me. And I was just like, so at this point I'm going, I can't move to get drawn back or do anything. And so I was just like, holy crap, he's about to stop where she just was. And I'm really screwed because he's like right on top of me. And so I came draw back, kind of playing this out in my mind, going, how do I give me a chance? Well, luckily when she took off, she kind of made a big loop and he went to cut her off and it changed his angle. So he was quartering away from me. But he was still trotting. Like he had his head down, kind of like looking at her. So right when he changes his angle, he gets behind this tree that had some low-hanging limbs, and I pull back. And luckily, I'd already ranged all the trees. I knew where everything was at, and I could see a tree that he was about to pass that I knew was at 40 yards. And normally, I would never take a shot that far, especially on a deer that was still moving, But he wasn't alert. I mean, he wasn't paying attention to anything.
He was worried about her.
And so anyway, I draw back. I get it set right on the 40 where I knew he was about to pass through on the tree. And I'm just like, man, like progressively getting louder, not paying me any attention. And so it was like, dude, I put in so many hours. It's like, it's now or never. Cause it's like, he may run out of my life and never see him again, And so I just led a little bit on his front shoulder, let it go. And by the time he passed, it went right through and was a full pass through out the far side shoulder. Well, I see the arrow, the Luminoc fly out and laying on the ground. And he bolts down this ravine, takes off chasing the doe again. And I'm just like, holy crap. And so it all happened so fast, like adrenaline. I didn't even have time for adrenaline to even hit until I saw the arrow pass through. And then I'm just like, dude, that was him. Like, this really just happened, And so then my very first buck experience came back to life of going, I didn't see him fall.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I'm not going to bump him. Right. And so I sit and the first thing I think is, well, I'm going to be late for Thanksgiving because I'm already late at this point of when I was supposed to pack up and go home. And so anyway, so I text my wife. I was like, hey, I got him, but I'm going to be late. I don't want to push him, whatever. And so anyway, I'll wait probably, I'd say about 40 minutes. And then finally, I just couldn't take it any longer. So I was like, man, I'm just going to go really, really slow, creep in there and get my arrow.
Yeah.
So I get over there, get my arrow, and it's just coated in blood. But the first deer lost a bunch of blood. So I go down the little ravine, pouring out blood, same deal. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to get to the edge of this corner. I'm going to scan this little edge of this pasture where he went through chasing the doe. If I don't see him, I'm backing out. I'll just come back later. I'm not going through this again. And so, and I'm getting ready to get my binoculars and look out across there, and I see horns sticking up out of the grass. And so I get my binoculars up and I look and I can see him laying there. And I was just like, oh my God. So I'll walk up and dude, to put my hands on that thing for the first time, pictures, literally like hundreds and hundreds of pictures of him. But to walk up on a deer like that, something I had hunted my whole life and dreamed about a deer half of that size, and just to pick him up. And I was just like, dude, what did I just do? And anyway, so I'm texting my lease mates, and they're like, "Holy crap, man! Congrats, whatever." And I'm just like in awe of it at this point. And anyway, and so I was like, "All right, well, now I've got to hurry, get them loaded, get home," because, like I say, we were hosting Thanksgiving dinner and or Thanksgiving lunch, and so I take off back to the truck, and I'm like, "Man, I got to try to drag this thing out here by myself." I was a long ways back there, so I was like, "Man, I'm going to be so late." And well, there were some guys that was there working. They had cattle on the place, and they're like, "Hey, we'll help you out." So they come down, load them up on their Kawasaki mule, and I get him back. So I pull up to my house. Don't stop at the taxidermist, butcher shop, nothing. I tag him, show up at my house with this deer head, hanging out the back. Of course, like all our relatives, like from all over, are coming out. They're like, "Oh my God, y'all have this here?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "This is like a deer of a lifetime that I just got extremely lucky on Thanksgiving Day."
Dude,
And so it was an amazing experience, and so once that happened, I didn't even have social media at the time. And so once the picture started getting out, it went like wildfire. And Cable Smith with Lone Star Outdoor Show was like, "Hey, does anybody know this guy?" And some friends of mine that recognized me was like, "Hey, I know him." So they got us in touch with each other. I went on his show, did a podcast with him. And, of course, he's like, "Hey, what's your Instagram handle?" I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "How do you not have Instagram?" And I was like, "I don't know. I had Facebook, but I never really was on it." And anyway, and so he's like, "Oh, dude, you got to get one so I can, tag you in it, whatever." So I ended up creating a Facebook page or a Instagram page, and he tagged me in it. Of course, I ended up getting a ton of followers, just from him posting that. And then, of course, later all the antis, and I ended up getting that account banned last March and had to start all over again.
Yeah, I remember that.
Anyway, and so it opened a bunch of doors because once it was on his show, which he's got a huge following.
Yeah. If you're talking about podcasting in the hunting space, and especially in Texas, if you don't listen to Cable Show, Lone Star Outdoor Show, you're living under a rock. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And super cool dude, man. And we ended up becoming really good friends. And so it, once it went on to his show, then it really reached a lot of people. And then I had Texas Trophy Hunters reach out to me. I was in their magazine, North American Whitetail. I was in their magazine, Buckmasters. I was on the cover of Rack magazine for Buckmasters.
Yeah.
I was in Eastman's magazine. I mean, it just opened a bunch of doors. And of course, I'm like, dude, this is amazing. Like, I just like to hunt, and for it to kind of segue me into the hunting industry and start meeting a bunch of cool people and get to do cool stuff. It was like just a dream come true. And so the buck got officially scored, and it netted 233. And so that ended up becoming the largest buck killed with a gun or bow in Texas for the year 2018. So I won regionals. It was the largest buck killed in my region, which is Region 5. So I went to the regional awards, and if you're in the top 3 in your region, or the top 3 at your regional awards, then you go to state. Well, I ended up winning state with that because, like I say, it was the largest buck killed with a gun or bow that year.
Yeah.
So I won state, and at the state convention, which was at the JW Marriott there in San Antonio, that's where I met some guys that owned Numa Cable.
Yeah.
And so that's how I ended up getting sponsored and getting affiliated with those guys, them and Trophy Scan and Los Cazadores and all that. So that's what kind of brought that opportunity together, and made a lot of really good friends through them. And so it was just really kind of neat, of how everything just kind of unfolded. And then, since then it's been, just going to, different events and things, and just meeting a lot of really cool people in the the industry. But, then the next season rolled around. It's like, well, now how do you top that?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, and I was cool with it. I was like, hey, that's a buck for lifetime. I'll probably never see anything like that again. And I'm cool with that. I mean, I can hang my hat on. But, I've been pretty fortunate. The next year I ended up shooting an 8-point that scored 151, which for an 8 points.
Yeah, that's a big 8.
One. And then the next year I shot a 9-point that scored. He was 154, somewhere around there. And then this year I shot a 163.
Yeah.
And so those were Collin County, which, like I said, are $1 counties. And then so of course I've got a lease in Kansas. I shot a pretty good 10-point there this year, and then I went and hunted at the King Ranch this year and shot a pretty good 8-point at the King Ranch this year. So it turns into, with Collin County having $1, it turns into having to go to different places, different counties, and and I still hunted some public land, had some decent bucks, but not one that I was willing to, drag 3 miles out of a swamp to shoot. It was going to have to be a big one for me to let one fly. But
for sure.
Yeah, so it's been a crazy few years for sure.
So I got a question, because I'm not sure if you grew up watching. I'm sure you did, but watching Buckmasters and hearing about the Eastman.
Oh yeah,
North American Whitetail.
Oh yeah.
Like, what was that feeling like when those people were calling you? You had, or what was it like to see your face and your deer in those places after growing up in that, the culture of it and being immersed with it? Because I was subscribed to those magazines. Like, I knew when they were going to get to my house. I'd like, it was something that I look forward to.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, not only was the deer a dream come true for me, but the opportunities that got presented was a dream come true, and so it's cover of Buckmasters magazine, I'm just like, this is amazing. Like, it was just, I really can't explain it. And then, another one was making the center, main article for Texas trophy hunters. I mean, how it is. I mean, growing up in Texas, whitetail deer hunting is like the mecca. And so, to be on the centerfold, article of Texas trophy hunters magazine, was just phenomenal. And of course, meeting all the editors and photographers, everybody that, just the whole staff that goes into those magazines, everybody's just super cool. Everybody can relate to it, and I think at first I didn't realize the magnitude of the deer that I shot until you start looking around going, there's really not that many deer that big that have been shot. But here was the funny part. So North American Whitetail had reached out to me and they said, hey, you're right now the front runner candidate for making the cover of North American Whitetail for that following season. And or they have so many issues, but it would have been like the September issue the following year. And so I'm like, oh man, this will be amazing, dude. 2 covers in the same year. I was like, well, this will be an epic fall, And Luke Brewster, don't know if you heard of him, shot the world record that same season, 2018. And of course that took the world by storm. And I was like, stole my thunder, man. But dude, his deer was 100 inches bigger than mine, which is, I'm like starstruck, by the deer that I shot.
330.
I cannot imagine what a 330 inch deer would look like. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you put that in perspective, it's just like, holy cow.
Yeah, that's a huge deer.
You know, and so.
And I mean, I'll say
it's
I haven't had the chance to hunt them or anything, but like we do photography and stuff for deer breeders here in Texas. And I know there's some people that don't like it and some people that do. I mean, it's hunting to me. And at some places, like you have big places that have high fences and you have some small places that have high fences. But each their own. But I've had the opportunity to be in breeder pens with these deer that are 300 something inches, and it's something to see. And I know the reason why they get to grow like that is because, I mean, they don't have coyotes chasing them. They don't have to go find food or water. It's there, readily available, 24 hours a day, and they have free choice of it. And all they have to do is just chill there. But to be in the wild and find a deer that big that is chased by coyotes, that has to cross roads and not be seen by every other hunter out there, it's a different challenge for sure.
Yeah.
Where was that?
100%.
Deer. Where was that deer out of?
Record? Illinois.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, so he shot that one in 2018. And so of course he got the cover of that one. And so I was like, hey, dude, anybody who shoots a deer like that deserves the cover of anything.
Anything. And
so, but so it was, So, but I mean, that's the cool part, that's where, like, hope is not lost for people, is because everyone kept saying that. They're like, well, you might as well just hang it up. You'll never shoot one, like that again. Well, so I have a buddy that a guy named Cody Griffin, that good friend of mine, that he hunts here in Collin County, and his very first buck was a 204. I mean, right at a 200, and everyone's like, "Oh, hang it up! You won't ever shoot another one that big." The next year, he shot a 230 or a 231, and back-to-back years. And so you're kind of going, I mean, it's possible, and so I look at that the same way of going, is this the year that a 300 inch deer gets shot in Collin County? I mean, who knows?
Just hunt the period.
And so, if it stays archery only, there's a really good chance that the deer will get to the, to the age structure, to get there. But there's just gotten to be so many hunters now, and there's not that many deer that I think those days are over. You'll occasionally see some big ones get shot that come off of some of the, like, core land and government land, that's kind of a sanctuary to them, but it won't be in the numbers of what it has been, just because between development and the amount of hunters coming, because every year since Collin County opened a deer season, which was 2012, there's been a 200-inch deer shot every year.
Every single year.
So that puts it in perspective. That's right now mine holds the record. It actually beat my buddy Cody's. It beat his by 2 inches. And so right now it's the record, but it'll get broken. Somebody will shoot one bigger than mine, more than likely, at some point. But it's poaching's really bad. There's a lot of people that, if they can't find a place to hunt, they risk it and go on to the core land, where they know these huge bucks are. People go out to a herd museum. It's a wildlife sanctuary. Catch people poaching deer there every year. I mean, it's just, it's at some point you wish they'd just cut people's hands off, that can't do it the right way.
And it doesn't. I don't understand the risk in that, because if you think you're going to go in here, it's not, obviously it's not for the fact that you want to eat it. It's for the fact that you just want to kill a big deer. But then what are you going to do with it? Are you going to hide it in your house? You can't talk to anybody about it if you kill it.
Right. Yeah.
And then if you do, when you do get caught,
that's what gets them busted.
Because you're going to mess up and somebody's going to take a picture of it, especially nowadays, you're never going to hunt again for the rest of your life. Or legally.
Well, that's what gets people busted. Yeah. Because they're shooting deer that are pretty recognizable. I mean, a lot of these are, they're non-typical bucks. The genetics, a lot of them are just non-typicals.
Yeah.
Just freaks. And a lot of them have characteristics that are not hard to determine which deer they are, and especially like from year to year if you're watching them. And so I don't get it either. It's just like, what is there, to do with, I mean, anybody can shoot a monster if you go shoot one illegally.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just go shoot one at night. I can probably shoot one bigger than the one I've just shot. But what good does that do anybody if you have to hide it,
Yeah.
And there was a guy in Denton County. It's like a county over from us. This is a few years, 3-4 years ago. He would have had the new state record. And he shot it at night. And it's just like stupid, man. I mean, I don't know, whatever. It's the frustrating part for me is all the hunters that do it the right way. They put in the work, they put in the time, to get that opportunity to have the experience like I did of like, dude, I've dreamed about shooting a buck like this, and all that hard work and dedication pays off just for some idiot to go out there and do it the wrong way. It's like, dude, anybody can shoot big deer if I want to go take a spotlight. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. It's sorry, man. Like I despise poachers, if you can't tell. I don't have time for that.
I'm not a big fan of them either. I mean, it's hard enough as it is, doing what we do with different people trying to stop it, and then that just adds ammo to them, and it makes us look bad as hunters. And if you can't, do it the right way, there's no sense in really doing it.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. But yeah, it's it's been awesome, and but everyone always they come back to the same story. Well, what are you going to do now? Hang it up. Might as well just shoot something else, pick up another. And to me, I'm like, I just love it. If I don't ever have the opportunity to another 200-inch deer, so be it. It's what I'll pursue. It will either one of two options. It'll either be the oldest, most mature deer that I see or have the opportunity at, or it'll be one with some kind of like cool characteristics or just something neat about it, that I like. And it doesn't have to score the most. Just just whatever intrigues me that I want to go, okay, this is the one I want to chase, because then it becomes the challenge of going, this is I want to kill a specific deer, not just
and like
a
you
deer,
said too. It's like the management part of it comes into it also. And now you want to see that guy, that deer at 3 and at 4 and at 5 and at 6 and at 7, and then you take him in.
Well, especially if you're finding their sheds, and then it starts building a story, with some of these deer to where now you've got their sheds from, and it kind of builds that timeline. I mean, to me, that's what it's all about, and that's why I enjoy the preparation. Like at the end of the season, I go out and I start shed hunting, and I start looking for the sheds to then go, well, hopefully I'm building a piece of the puzzle to a buck that's going to be a giant next year that maybe I'll get him, or if I don't, maybe somebody I know gets him and I can give them the sheds and kind of build the story for them, and so it's, I love it, man. I mean, there's nothing better.
So I know whitetails are your favorite, but you hunt living in Texas. I mean, you hunt exotics too?
I have, of course, I know down like San Antonio area, there's, some free ranging like axis and stuff like that. But in North Texas, we don't have any. And so, I've gone to some high fence ranches, and I've shot black buck, some fallow, axis, things like that, that we don't have the opportunity unless we go to a high fence here or unless we, drive somewhere else. But, and I get what you're saying in terms of the high fence ranches too, because a lot of people look down on that, but for me, it was something exotic of going, okay, well, I'm not traveling to India to go shoot a black buck, and I have the opportunity to go hunt one here. Why wouldn't I, And, I know some people look at that and they're like, man, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Well, not the ranches I went to. They're like 6,000 acres, and sometimes you're lucky to even see an animal to shoot. And I'm kind of
like we said, I know that there's places, that have smaller pastures, and they're running hunters through.
Right.
I don't agree with it. I won't participate with it. But I also know that hunter paid for a license. He bought ammo. He bought a rifle or a bow or bought hunting clothes. So I know that some of that money is going back to conservation where it needs to go. I just won't participate in that. But good for him. If he shoots a 340-inch whitetail on a high fence, I'm going to tell him, good job. Great. Hope you had a great time. I'm definitely not going to be like, oh, well, you shot it under a high fence. It doesn't count. If it tripped your trigger, if it got you excited, that's what it is. And I don't understand too that some of those guys, work in Houston, work in town. They don't have time to or have the opportunity to hunt their own place. I mean, they're trying to go in, they want to hunt, they want to kill something, and they have to go back to work. It all kind of just has different things that come into it. But yeah, I mean, I love hunting exotics. Like you said,
I'm with you.
Those bigger places. Good luck trying to find them. Good luck trying to find them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I get it. And to each his own. Like I say, I'm not going to knock anybody that hunts a high fence because especially if you try to get a lease anytime as of late, dude, it's almost impossible to find a deer lease. And if you find one, they're outrageously priced. So I can see how somebody might go, okay, well, I'm going to go spend $5,000 on the lease, but then I got to buy corn, travel, trail cameras, batteries, which are freaking like $30 for like 6 of them now. Everything that goes in it, you're going to end up spending, $8,000, $10,000 on a lease that doesn't guarantee you're going to shoot anything. So I could see how somebody'd go, and I'll go spend $5,000 on where I've got a really high probability of shooting something and putting meat in the freezer. So, I mean, I don't really judge people. The only thing that I will say kind of irks me a little bit is if someone goes and shoots a big, a giant deer on a high fence ranch and then starts bragging about it to people, like, oh, well, whatever about your little 160, I shot this, 300 and whatever. And it's like, okay,
now, dude,
I have to just kind of, I just kind of have to bite my tongue on that one. It's like, I don't have a problem that you do it, but don't start bragging or putting other people down. Yeah, it's like, don't start putting other people down and like bragging about it. You know what I mean?
You didn't have.
So that's the only thing.
Yeah, agreed, man. Agreed. So, what was it like hunting on the King Ranch, man? Like, that's a hunt dream for any kid growing up in Texas that knows anything. Hunting on the King Ranch is probably high on the list.
You were kind of talking about, growing up, like hearing stuff. I grew up hearing of the King Ranch. It's like the Mecca of hunting, right? And so I've been pretty fortunate. I have a really good friend that actually has a 10,000 acre lease on the King Ranch, and he's invited me to come up and hunt. And dude, it's another world, and like I say, me growing up hunting southern Oklahoma, wasn't real high deer populations. East Texas wasn't high deer populations, and definitely not a lot of really big deer. And then North Texas just recently opening a season in 2012, not high populations of deer, to then go down there where deer, and I'm talking big deer, like, because it's pristinely well kept. I mean, top-notch management program that they run up there. The deer have to be 5.5 or older before they can shoot them. So I'm seeing some huge deer. I'm talking like some giants, like 160s, 170s at like 3 years old. And they're like, oh yeah, we can't shoot those. And I'm like, what? I was like, anybody would shoot this deer. I hear you. So to me, it's been cool because they let me come up there and shoot management bucks, which, I shot like 140-inch 8-point up there, and that's a management buck to them, which was a dream buck for me. I mean, I just kind of have a thing for 8 points as it is anyway, but gotten to shoot a javelina up there. I'd never shot a javelina. Even of all the pigs I've shot, I've never shot one of those. So I shot one of those last year when I went. The quail hunting's phenomenal, dove hunting, turkey hunting. I mean, dude, it's anything, nilgai. I mean, anything you want to shoot, they've got it. I mean, it's just, it's a hunter's paradise is about the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, I got to spend a little time down there
it's
my
phenomenal.
freshman year of college when I was going to Texas A&M Kingsville. And I was originally an animal science major, so we got to go on the King Ranch and do some stuff and like go look at horses and their horse program and all that. So
I actually went by that college when I was down there, and we went by the King's estate and saw their house and all that stuff, and so it was cool. Just the history of that range alone, is just.
I think everybody should just go.
Having their own school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool, very cool. Which the new Texas state record non-typical was just killed on the King Ranch last year. I can't remember the guy's name. Robert Bucher, I think is his name. It was 272. I think that's what it netted. 272, somewhere around there. 260, 267 net, something like that. But so I saw the mount. He had a full body mount of it, and it was at Hibbler's Taxidermy, and I saw it when I was up there. Just phenomenal. I was like, wow, it's incredible.
That is definitely.
But that place is it's one of a kind.
Wildlife paradise for sure.
It's awesome. No doubt. Yeah. So hopefully I can make it an annual thing to get up there and hunt with those guys, because I mean, I could live there, man. I could live there and never leave.
I hear you, man. I hear you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, with I know you said you got club volleyball and stuff with your daughter right now, but like, what do you got coming up this spring?
Well, so I've got a lease up in Pittsburgh, Kansas that during the summer, this last summer, I had a ton of turkeys. And so the plan was to go up there and turkey hunt this spring. But a buddy that I leased the property with, I need to catch up with him and see if he's been running any cameras to see if the turkeys have moved back in, because like right when the fall hit, the turkeys moved out. We didn't see any. But like during summer, we'd have like flocks of like 35, 40 of them, and so I'm hoping they facilitate back in here in the next few weeks, because my plan is to try to get up there and do some turkey. And that's what I was saying. It's like, man, we need to get together and go up there and shoot one, but I got to make sure there's something there. You know what I mean? And so, and of course, it's a pretty good hike. I mean, it's a long drive. And so I really want to make sure that the turkeys are in there, and I'm not just driving up there and I'm calling and nothing responded, and there's not any for 6 miles from me.
Are those Rios
now,
up there?
There is some public land.
Rios.
Yeah. And there's some public land that's not too far from where my lease is, and I see they've got turkeys in there all the time. So that was like, well, maybe if I go to the lease and not be turkeys there, I'll go to public land. I need to kind of do some homework and ask some of the locals up there, how it is with turkey hunters, just because, I don't want to go up there and it just be like an ocean of people and everybody's like calling each other, what I mean? So, but I need to try to pull out some time to start focusing on that.
Sir.
That's
it is. It really is. Like already we're here at the end of February, then March, then it opens up. I think I got to look. I think the 18th for South Texas. So it's coming up soon, man.
Yeah, for sure. What about you? You got a place to go?
Probably film. I got a couple filming jobs that I'm gonna do down South Texas, and then I'm gonna go film in Arkansas also, and hunt up there. Wow. But I'll try and kill a bird in between there sometime. We'll see how it goes. It's cool for me because I get to shoot them with a camera, and I mean, I like shooting them. Yeah, don't get me wrong, but like the camera still gets it for me too, and making sure that footage looks good.
Oh yeah, capturing that footage.
And being able to get that on camera and film for somebody else too that kills it. That does it for me also.
Yeah, that's been my deal. Is it's when I killed my big buck, everyone's like, "Did you get it on video?" And at the time, all I carried was a GoPro. I didn't have a Tacticam, nothing. Definitely not a handheld camera, video cam. And so I was like, no. And they're like, man, you know, pay you for the pictures, for the
Yeah.
publishing rights and everything for the magazines. But they're like, you could have made some good money if you had the video. So of course, then I'm like, all right, I got to go buy all this stuff. Oh my God. I didn't realize how difficult this is trying to
Yes,
self
sir.
film
Yes.
hunts, and then trying to remember
Yep.
to set everything up. And like I say, I started a YouTube channel just to kind of download this stuff. But my deal is I don't have a creative mind. So I get real impatient trying to make these videos and clips together. I'm just like, screw it. I'll just piece it all together and put it on there. So, but at least I
Oh
still
yeah,
have
for
the
sure.
memory,
I
so it's,
tell everybody
at
that
least
if
parts
it's
of it.
not for the purpose of posting it
But
somewhere,
yeah.
just at least do it for watching it for later on. You show your kids, your grandkids, and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, yeah. No, it's awesome. But yeah, no, need to try to get you up there. I need to try to have some time and kind of see what's going on up in that area. Because I used to go up in Oklahoma a lot too, but there's not many birds there, and if they're not responding to your call, it is
Oh yeah,
tough hunting. So I kind of slacked off on hunting them there. Just like I say, there just wasn't high enough numbers for me to spend the whole weekend going and chasing them up and down the Comanche
yeah.
Mountains. So, but those are all
Okay,
easterns
yeah, yeah.
there. So,
No, I tell
but
people all the time, they're like, man, it's
but
just
yeah,
turkey hunting fun because I used to be a huge like I don't care anything about turkeys. Like watching Outdoor Channel and
hmm
springtime came around, I was mad because all it was bass fishing and
yeah,
turkey hunting, and I hated
yeah,
it. Then I got
yeah,
to go and see it, and
yeah.
then I fell in love with it. But I always tell people like turkey hunting's fun. Period. When the birds cooperate.
I will say it can be. It's like it can be frustrating, but dude, when you call and they respond and come to the calls, it's hard to
Yeah,
get much better than that. You know what I mean? It's just it's a really cool experience. But yeah, there's times that you go and you call and it's just crickets, and it's like they're
yeah,
there, they're just not responding. That can be frustrating, because then you're like, well, dude, how am I gonna? I'm not gonna
yeah.
stock up on these things, right? And so you kind of know you're out of the game if you can't get set up or in position or off the roost or something, and so. But it's the challenge of it. That's what
Yep,
makes it
for
fun,
sure,
you
man,
know.
for sure. Well, shoot, man, I don't want to keep you on here all night, but we'll have to save another one for another episode. But I do appreciate you
Yeah, for sure, bro.
coming on the podcast, talking a little hunting and stuff, and our friendship is growing from Instagram now, and having real conversations. That's why we kind of started this podcast. Just we talk to a lot of people on Instagram and stuff, but just wanted to talk to them and hear their side of things. So it was cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me on. And like I say, it's anytime I can talk about hunting or fishing or anything outdoor related, you got my attention, man. So like I say, I appreciate you reaching out, and always a
Same
pleasure,
here,
bro.
man. Same here.